Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to another video by Qur'anstudy.co.uk. In my most recent video, I went through the 5 reasons why Muslims need to be studying the Qur'an in detail. In this video, I'll be talking about the 5 reasons why many Muslims do not study the Qur'an in detail. Before I get into the 5 reasons, let me say this video is not meant to be offensive at all. I'm not referring to any specific individuals. I'm generalizing about the key reasons why Muslims as a nation do not study the Quran in detail. And the reason why I want to do that is because I think it's very important to discuss these things so we can overcome the challenges that we face in studying the Quran, which, as I described in my previous video, is an obligation placed on us by our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the first reason that many of us will have is that we do not know Arabic. Now, it is true that if we had a good grasp of Arabic, that will help immensely in studying the Quran. There's no doubt about that. However, think about this. Allah did not reveal the Quran only for those who speak Arabic. The Quran was revealed for all of mankind. You don't need to be fluent in Arabic to understand the Quran. I myself am not an Arabic speaker, but I've learned how to study the Quran. And the trick here is about learning how to study Quranic Arabic. That's the important point here. Don't forget that there are many learned people who have had a very strong grasp of Arabic, who have spent years of their lives trying to help people like you and me who may not know Arabic to understand the Quran. There are numerous translations in so many different languages. There are many texts where people who have a strong grasp of Arabic have helped us to break down each individual word within the Quran to understand the depth of their meaning and to help to pull the meanings together to form the concept which Allah is describing to us within the Quran. So the resources are there. The hard work has already been done. The obligation on us now is to find those resources. Find the ones which work for us to help us to understand the Quran, to study the Quran. Reason number 2 is that we don't know how to study the Quran. Now, this is true. The majority of us are not taught how to study the Quran. A lot of us are taught how to recite the Quran from a very early age. A lot of us are taught how to memorize the Quran from a very early age. But it is unfortunate that we are not taught in the main about how to study the Quran in detail. There is a technique. One of the things that we will be doing in the near future is launching a video to show you how you can study the Quran. And this video will be aimed particularly at those who do not know Arabic. I'll be showing you how I study the Quran, which is not the only way to study it, but I'm hoping it's going to help others to see how you can achieve this very important goal. And don't forget, Allah says in chapter 54, verse 32, that Allah has made the Quran simple to understand. Allah is telling us himself, this is simple to understand. Do we believe that? The third reason is that we don't have time. The reality is that we do have time. Time is not the issue. The problem is with what we prioritize. We do have time. We have time to socialize. We have time to use social media. We have time to watch movies, watch TV programs. We have time to play games, sports. We have time for our work. We have time to sleep. There are many hours in a day. We do have time. Think about it this way. When you were looking to pass your driving test, you made time to practice driving. You made time to study the highway code and other rules in your countries which you have to follow when driving. When you were studying, when you were a student, or if you're still a student, you make time to read the books, to understand them, to prepare for your exams. We make time. We prioritize those aspects in our lives. Whatever you want to achieve in your life, if you're motivated to do it, you prioritize the time. You prioritize and you make time for it. So the problem for us is that we do not understand that we need to place priority in understanding the Quran and make time for it. The time is there. It is for us to make the time. The fourth reason which we have found is that when you start to study it, many of us will find that some of the instructions that Allah gives us contradict what we've been brought up to believe. And there could be many reasons for that. And that's because what we practice and believe in day to day is influenced by what we've been educated on, cultures, general religious beliefs, wider society, influence of people we trust. There are many reasons why this happens. But what happens with many of those individuals, some individuals will actually use that as a reason to study the Quran further. It raises their interest. They open their eyes and they think, oh, let's look at this further. But the others, what we find, is that they become afraid. Yes, they become afraid of studying the Quran. It seems that they start to think that the Quran is going to make them lose their iman of what they've been brought up to believe. Think about that. Our iman is based on Allah's revelations. Our iman is based on Allah's guidance. And Allah's revelations, the guidance, is contained in the Quran. There is one truth, there is one straight path that is contained in the Quran. Yet some of us will choose to avoid studying the Quran on the basis that it may contradict what they've been brought up to believe in. Think about that. Instead, we should be embracing that knowledge of the Quran, using as a reason and a motivation to study it further and really understand it, ponder it before we start to follow the Quran, which is what Allah instructs us to do. As I said in my previous video, Allah instructs us to ponder over the verses of the Quran before we act on them. He wants us to understand. So let's not be fearful of studying the Quran. Let's not fear the message in the Quran. Let's embrace it. Let's welcome it. Let's study it, understand it, and follow it. And reason number 5 why many Muslims do not study the Quran is that they do not really understand the need, the obligation to study the Quran. And this is why our previous video was focused on 5 reasons why we should be studying the Quran. Many people, unfortunately, do not understand, not just that this is a clear obligation placed on us by Allah, our Creator, but that to truly understand how to achieve the outcomes which Islam is about, to achieve peace and satisfaction in our lives and in our communities, in this world as well as the hereafter. To understand the purpose of our lives and to achieve that purpose, you've got to study the Quran. And we explained in our previous video the logic behind that. And if you haven't seen that video, please do watch it, because that's very important. And this brings me on to my closing comment, because really, this is the real reason why people do not study the Quran, is that they do not understand the need to study it. They do not understand how important it is that we study it. We have not been educated to place the importance on studying the Quran that it deserves. And because we do not understand the need, we're not motivated. And that's why we will make excuses in our minds. We will convince ourselves that we do not have time to do this, that what we're doing is enough, that what we've been taught and what we're practicing is enough and it's the right path. That is the real reason why we will use the Quran to decorate our homes. We will decorate the Quran. We will recite the Quran. We will tell people we believe in the Quran, but yet we will not study it and we will not understand it. And this brings me nicely onto the mission of QuranStudy.co.uk, why it was founded. We have 3 missions. Number 1, we want to help people understand how important it is to study the Quran in detail. Secondly, we want to help people to learn how to study the Quran. And that's why, as I said, one of our next videos will be to help non-Arabic speakers learn how to study the Quran. And the third purpose of QuranStudy.co.uk is that we are students of the Quran ourselves and we want to share what we learn. That's why we produce videos on specific topics, particularly on current affairs. We will try and describe what the Quran says about that. We will write articles and share them on our website. And when we do our study circles ourselves, we will stream them live for you, so you can join us and learn at the same time as we do when we study the Quran. So before we go, as we like to do, I'm going to share an interesting fact about the Qur'an. Did you know in chapter 2, verse 170, Allah says, "And when it is said to them, follow what Allah has revealed, they say, rather we will follow that which we found our fathers doing," even though their fathers understood nothing. Are we sure this verse is not applying to us? Assalamu alaikum.